The moment those words escaped Lady Colin Campbell's lips, the royal illusion didn't just crack, it detonated. Because she didn't whisper a rumor, she didn't hint at speculation. She declared something so explosive, so dangerous, so utterly destabilizing that if even a fraction of it were true, the entire carefully constructed Sussex narrative would collapse overnight. Archie, the child presented to the world as Meghan and Harry's son, the boy whose face has been carefully shielded, selectively revealed, and mysteriously absent. According to Lady Colin Campbell, Archie isn't living in California. He isn't growing up inside the manicured perfection of Montecito. He isn't running through sunlit gardens under Meghan's watchful eyes. No. According to her shocking claim, Archie is living quietly in the United Kingdom with his real mother, not Meghan, someone else. And in that single statement, everything stopped making sense. Because suddenly, Meghan's flawless public image, her calm interviews, her perfectly rehearsed smiles, all began to look less like confidence and more like containment. Containment of something fragile, something volatile, something that could shatter everything she had built if it ever escaped into the light. The palace had survived scandals before, affairs, betrayals, abdications. But this wasn't just scandal, this was existential. Because Archie isn't just a child, he is a symbol, he is a line in the royal succession. He is a living, breathing connection between past and future. And if the truth about him was not what the world had been told, then the consequences wouldn't be emotional, they would be historic. That sentence didn't just echo, it stalked every corner of the royal narrative like a ghost refusing to be ignored. Because suddenly, people began asking the one question that had always lingered quietly beneath the surface. Where is Archie really? Not where we've been told. Not where carefully staged photos suggested, but where he truly lives. Because when you strip away the PR statements, the curated glimpses, the selective storytelling, something unsettling emerges. Absence, silence, distance. Archie's life has never unfolded like any other royal child. There were no spontaneous balcony appearances, no candid park photos, no chaotic, unfiltered childhood moments captured accidentally by the press. Instead, there was only control, precision, calculation. Every image released felt less like a glimpse and more like permission. Permission granted only when it served a purpose. And that's when Lady Colin Campbell's claim stopped sounding outrageous and started sounding dangerous. Because dangerous claims tend to emerge when dangerous truths are buried. The timeline itself refuses to cooperate with the official narrative. Harry and Meghan married in May 2018, wrapped in a fairy tale spectacle that mesmerized the world. Just months later, Archie was conceived. On paper, it was simple, logical, expected. But relationships, especially royal ones, are never just about dates. They are about proximity, control, presence. And according to psychological observers familiar with intense relationship dynamics, Meghan and Harry were inseparable during those early months. They weren't just partners, they were locked in a consuming emotional fusion. Meghan had Harry's attention, his loyalty, his isolation from outside influence. She was not just part of his world. She was his world. So how does another mother appear inside that reality? How does a separate maternal figure emerge inside a timeline that allowed no visible space for her existence? The answer isn't obvious. But the questions refuse to disappear. Because questions like these don't die. They evolve. Those words hit like a lightning strike through Meghan's carefully protected identity. Because Meghan's power has never just been about being Harry's wife. It has been about being Archie's mother. Motherhood gave her legitimacy. It gave her permanence. It anchored her inside the royal bloodline in a way nothing else ever could. Without Archie, Meghan would be an outsider who married in. But with Archie, she became something far more untouchable. She became the mother of a prince. And that's why Lady Colin Campbell's claim didn't just challenge Meghan's image. It threatened her foundation. Because if Archie lives somewhere else, with someone else, then the role Meghan presented to the world becomes something else entirely. A performance. a role, a narrative, not necessarily reality. Such a simple demand, such devastating implications, because proof is the one thing no narrative can survive without. And suddenly, everything Meghan had done began to look different. Her fierce protection of Archie's privacy, her refusal to allow uncontrolled access, her careful management of every image, every glimpse, every mention. What had once been framed as maternal instinct now began to look like strategic containment, because privacy protects more than children. Privacy protects secrets, and secrets only need protection when exposure would destroy something. Because panic isn't caused by lies, panic is caused by truth getting too close. And the deeper investigators looked, the stranger the contradictions became. Harry's repeated trips back to the UK, quiet visits, short stays, always controlled, always shielded, always explained away with official duties, legal battles, or charity obligations. But what if those explanations weren't the full story? What if those visits weren't about courts or charities at all? What if they were about fatherhood? Because according to quiet whispers circulating far from palace microphones, Archie never left Britain. He stayed behind, raised quietly, protected, hidden in plain sight, not by Meghan, but by the woman who gave birth to him. And if that were true, it would explain everything. Harry's visible tension whenever the UK is mentioned. His emotional fragility during discussions about family, his haunted expressions that appear and disappear like shadows across his face. Because men can lie to the world. They can lie to their families, they can lie to themselves, but they cannot lie to their children. Not surrogate.mother. That word changes everything, because it introduces a possibility too explosive to confront directly. That Archie's true maternal bond may exist somewhere far from Montecito's cameras, somewhere quiet, somewhere real, somewhere unmanufactured. And if that possibility exists, then Meghan's carefully curated version of motherhood becomes something fragile, something conditional, something dependent on belief rather than proof. Because belief is powerful, but belief collapses the moment reality steps forward. And reality doesn't negotiate. It exposes. The most terrifying secrets are never the ones shouted. They are the ones protected by silence. And when it comes to Archie, silence has been louder than anything Meghan or Harry have ever said. Because silence creates space. And inside that space, truth begins to breathe. Imagine the weight of living inside a lie so massive it could destroy everything if exposed. Imagine waking up every day knowing the entire world believes something that isn't fully real. The pressure, the paranoia, the constant need to control every detail, every photo, every appearance, every word. Because one mistake, one slip, one unscripted moment, and the entire illusion collapses. But because his child is there, that single possibility explains something the official story never could. Harry's emotional fracture. Because Harry doesn't look like a man fully anchored in Montecito. He looks like a man split between two worlds. One world where he performs happiness for cameras, and another world where his real emotional gravity exists far away. Because a father's connection doesn't dissolve with geography. It doesn't disappear because of public narratives. It survives, it waits, it pulls him back. And Harry keeps returning again and again and again. Not loudly, not publicly, but consistently. Because fathers don't abandon their sons, but they can be forced to live apart from them. And that possibility introduces the first explosive scenario. What if Archie's true origin isn't what the world believes? What if Archie wasn't carried by Meghan at all? What if Archie's biological mother exists somewhere in Britain, outside Meghan's control, outside Meghan's narrative, outside Meghan's carefully constructed identity? That sentence doesn't just challenge Meghan. It destroys her entire emotional empire, because Meghan's strength has always come from control. Control of narrative. control of perception, control of access. But a child born outside her physical experience would represent something uncontrollable, something permanent, something she couldn't erase or rewrite. Because children don't disappear, they grow, they exist, they become undeniable. And that kind of existence threatens everything. Because Meghan's global power didn't come from being Harry's girlfriend, it came from becoming his wife and the mother of his child. That combination elevated her from celebrity to royalty. But if Archie's true maternal bond belongs to someone else, Meghan's role becomes something else entirely. A participant, not the origin. And that difference changes everything. Replacement. The one emotional injury Meghan could never tolerate. Because betrayal can be survived, betrayal can be forgiven. But replacement destroys identity. Replacement says you were never essential, you were never irreplaceable, you were never the center. And Meghan has built her entire existence around being the center, which leads to a darker, colder possibility, not one driven by emotion, but by calculation. Because if Meghan discovered Harry had a child with another woman, leaving him would mean losing everything. The title, the global platform, the influence, the financial security, the proximity to the throne. But staying would give her something far more powerful. Leverage. Permanent leverage. Always control. Because control transforms weakness into power, and power transforms secrets into weapons. Imagine the unspoken agreement, the silent understanding, the invisible chain connecting Harry to Meghan. Not built from love, not built from trust, but built from knowledge. Knowledge of something that could never be publicly acknowledged without destroying everything. I stayed, Meghan could remind him silently, I protected you. And protection always comes with a price. But there is another possibility. One colder, more clinical, less emotional, but equally devastating. That version removes betrayal, but keeps separation, because surrogacy introduces a biological truth Meghan could never replicate. Pregnancy creates a bond that cannot be manufactured afterward. It creates emotional ownership, physical ownership, maternal ownership. And if the surrogate refused to surrender that bond completely, Archie's true emotional home might never have been Montecito at all. It might have remained exactly where he was born. In Britain. With the woman whose body created him. And if that happened, Meghan's connection to Archie would exist only in narrative, only in presentation, only in public belief. Not in lived experience. Because images can lie. Photos can deceive. Videos can be staged. Reality can be edited. And when investigators began examining Archie's appearances, disturbing patterns emerged. Brief glimpses, controlled angles, limited movement, faces partially hidden, moments carefully choreographed, never spontaneous, never chaotic, never authentically messy the way real children are. Almost like something was being protected. Or hidden. Or substituted. Because substitutions solve problems, and problems always exist when truth doesn't align with narrative. Constructed, that word alone is enough to destabilize everything. Because construction implies fabrication, and fabrication implies deception, and deception implies motive. Which brings us to the most haunting image of all. Not Meghan in Montecito, not Harry in California, but somewhere quiet in Britain, somewhere far from cameras, somewhere untouched by global scrutiny. A small house, a quiet garden, a boy with red hair running freely, laughing freely, living freely, unaware that his existence is the center of one of the most explosive mysteries in modern royal history. Harry may exist in two realities. One where he performs the life expected of him, and another where he experiences the life he cannot publicly acknowledge. Because public identity and private truth rarely align inside royal systems. One is designed for visibility. The other is designed for survival. And somewhere between those two realities exists Archie.not fully present, not fully absent, but permanently surrounded by questions. Because shadows only exist when something real is blocking the light. And Archie remains that shadow. A child whose existence connects two continents, two narratives, two incompatible versions of reality. One version carefully presented to the world, and another version quietly whispered behind closed doors. Because truth doesn't vanish. It waits, it watches, it gathers strength, and eventually it emerges. And when it does, it won't just expose a secret, it will expose everything. Because the question has never stopped echoing. Where is Archie really? And why has no one ever truly answered?